Okay, we're here to talk about The Bear, Season 5, final season, episodes 7 and 8, Caramel and the Original Beef of Chicagoland. In these two episodes, dinner service on the chaotic day at the Bear continues, and the staff tries to figure out how to accommodate late diners, full reservations, because Richie didn't cancel any, and a quickly dwindling food supply. The supposed Michelin star raider arrives with Chicago weatherman Tom Skilling, and they fall in love with their food, their wine, and Neil Fack's stories about his tattoos. Marcus's father also arrives for dinner at the restaurant. When Carmy drops the Starman's plate of lamb, they pivot to Sid's cola braised short ribs which does impress the diners. After more chaos and creativity, the staff is able to pull off a very successful service. Outside the restaurant, Uncle Jimmy and Computer agree that Ibrahim's franchise proposal is the best way to save the restaurant. The very next day, Sugar's happy with how the money is looking. Richie is invited to Japan for a hospitality conference. Jimmy tells Carmy about the franchise idea, and Tina is able to go back to the market to restock the food. Carmy finally takes a call from Peter Clark at Michelin and learns that they earn not one but two stars for the restaurant. He's able to share the news and celebrate with Sid. Some weeks later, Luca returns to Copenhagen. Ibrahim begins working on the franchising. Tina takes over as CDC, and Carmy goes to an interview for an internship at an architectural firm where he's able to convey all that the bear meant to him. At the end, all of the Bear staff and extended family, including Carmy and Claire, gather for a birthday party for Richie's daughter. First, some comments about episode 7 was actually the end of the Bear, and that's how people will remember it. There are some interesting things that we need to discuss in episode 8. Maybe that's why critics only got first 7 episodes in their package. Are you satisfied more with the ending of 7, or do you think we needed 8? Where should we begin with these two episodes?
Well, I guess I think we needed 8. I get the idea that I've seen some refer to it even as more of an epilogue than a
Yeah.
conclusion, but I don't know. I don't know if I fully agree with that either. Like, could it have ended after episode 7? Sure, and then I don't
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
fill in the gaps. But I don't think it's that kind of show. That relates in part to a criticism I do have. We'll get to here at some point, I think. Um, but at the same time, I think that the kind of closure that episode 8 is aiming to provide is something that we expected from this show. And if that
Mm.
episode hadn't been there, I think a lot of people would have been complaining about it ending after episode 7, although I could take the point in terms of the structure of the television that it kind of could have, and the story was meaningfully over. We at least wanted that kind of denouement. We wanted the closure and the resolution of not just the plot, but sort of the character arcs and so on. I think. What do you think?
If if we did not have 8, and instead of that, we had, you know, we saw Carmy kept getting a call from someone at Michelin, let's say, and let's say he never answered the call. And so we're left to wonder what happened. How would you have felt about that as an ending? Did you need to know whether or not they earned a Michelin star for this to be a satisfying conclusion to the series?
No, I didn't really care about that.
Okay,
I
okay.
mean, so like if you're suggesting, well, the thing is, his phone says unknown caller, like you don't know who it is, and I don't even
Mhm.
know that I think that Carmi knew who it was.
I don't
You
think so.
know, it's I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm risking a tangent or whatever. I don't know about you, but if I get a call on my cell phone that says unknown caller, like I don't answer it. You know what
Exactly.
I mean?
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
you maybe leave a voicemail, and then like maybe I'll listen to the voicemail, and
If yeah, if Carmi got a voicemail, this is Michelin, call us back, and then we never heard it. It just, I don't know. There's
yeah,
certainly some
like
things about about 8 that we need to talk about, which I know that we will. But in terms of what had to be resolved in 8, I think the star and perhaps Claire were the only two things I was like, okay, I can see why you're doing it in why you have this episode.
oh, see, I meaningfully disagree because like it's in 8 that we get Carmi agreeing to Abraham's franchise idea, right?
Okay. Okay.
It's in 8 that we get Richie being invited to Japan and having to confront his fear of flying because he's never flown before, but like almost everything else in the bear, of course, that's symbolic of his anxiety in general about his life and a sense of purpose or lack thereof, and fear about actually going after things. Like I'm tempted to say the old Richie we met at the beginning of season one wouldn't have gone
Yeah,
to
yeah,
Japan. Um, and with the other characters, it was maybe a little bit more perfunctory. I think we already talked last time about how there's kind of a meaningful way in which Tina's arc has already been resolved, and maybe almost was a while ago. All right, now she's officially become chef de cuisine. We're just like
mhm,
we're what's the word I want? It's like we're officially recognizing something that was already there, which is also how the scene
yeah,
plays when Sid gives her the title, right? It's like you're already
yeah,
doing the job. I'm just making it official. But it's still nice to have that made official. I know that happened before episode 8. The resolution, such as it is, of the stuff between Marcus and his father, which of course isn't tied up with a neat bow, but I think it's sufficient, at least in terms of
yeah,
saying, Marcus has gotten to the point where he's willing to talk to the guy.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so, I mean, I think a lot of this stuff that happened in episode 8, it feels necessary for me to at least kind of round out the character arcs. And you couldn't have shoved it into episode 7 somehow, because episode 7 is all about the service.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I just wonder, and maybe I am, I know we're talking about, maybe I'm just, I'm getting anchored down by some of my thoughts on Carmi's presence in episode 8. But it just seems like there was
Oh,
a sense of them coming together, understanding the family, understanding their place and what it takes or what it means to get something done like they did. And so I certainly enjoyed 8. I enjoyed 8. I enjoyed the resolutions we got. I enjoyed the story that we were told. Yeah, just I think just an interesting note that it is probably just best called an epilogue, as you put it.
interesting. Yeah, I mean, all right. So let's go to more. I mean, you already kind of started on the negative from you, but I somewhat disagree. So maybe now we'll flip it around and come with a negative from me that you'll disagree with. Maybe you'll disagree with that, or maybe you'll agree. But I don't know. I read your recap, so you should check out Ryan's article on this on tvobsessive.com. I encourage you to do so. Of course, it's the best article that's available anywhere. But I'm going to shout out Catherine Van Arendonk's article on Vulture, um, which, sorry, the slug here is not the name of the article. The article is called "The Bear Just Couldn't Help Itself," I believe. Um, but I'm calling this out because, well, one, I mean, I think it's really good and she's really well written and
Yeah.
all that. But she also kind of hits the nail on the head of something that I was already feeling, I love that experience of sort of saying, okay, well, this is something I already was thinking in a more nebulous way and have someone really articulate it well. But in particular, I guess the thing I want to talk about is that scene with Carmi, because of
Hmm.
mentioning the resolution of the character arcs. And I think I said last time we were talking on the podcast about the bear that, well, yeah, it's a show about the restaurant, but it's also the show about Carmi, who is the bear. And of all the character arcs, I am the least satisfied with Carmi's resolution here. And this isn't the article, but when she posted on Blue Sky, Catherine Van Dog says, like, if you read this, if you want to see which part of the finale, maybe go. And I agree. It
Yeah,
was that scene.
yeah.
It was that interview where I went. Pff. Um, I don't know. How did that land for you? All the stuff where, like, they leave it kind of, you don't entirely know what's going on at first exactly with Stevie and so on, and what exactly is this meeting about, and what is he trying to
Yeah.
do? And then they go through this whole thing, um, with the reveal being apparently he's applying for an architectural internship. How did this land for you, Ryan?
Yeah, I think interestingly, you were probably reading this piece about the same time I was listening to the podcast that Catherine and Alan Sepinwall have together,
Oh,
and
interesting.
they were talking about this very same topic. Like she conveys many of these same ideas that's in this piece and Vulture on their podcast. So I was kind of thinking along these same lines already, and yeah, I think that. So the idea to hide the ball here of what Carmi is there to do or what he's there to interview for. I mean, I think many of us were maybe thinking the same thing. You're thinking like, oh, he's gonna I don't know, do a Anthony Bourdain book. Maybe he's going to do a, consult. Maybe he's going to get a loan to get his own restaurant. Something, something that allows him to focus his energies on where his talents are. But to say that he's going to apply for it, what 30 years old or whatever he is, at an architectural firm for an internship when he has no background, no college degree, no training, no sense of anything other than Stevie knows these people. I just was quite floored that that was the decision. That I mean, you find out 4 minutes before the end of this series that that's where they went.
Yeah, I almost wish we were on. Well, maybe I don't wish we were on videos. With this is audio only. If you had the video, just you see as Brian was talking, I was like shaking my head and rolling my eyes. Yeah. As it was unfolding, I found myself thinking that he was going to be pitching a book, and
Yes,
where I've
yes,
landed is that's what they should have done because
I
then you
think
could
so.
Yeah, because then you could say, okay, well, I mean, it would make some sense. He's a creative guy or whatever. He's had all these experiences. It would also tie into what Stevie was saying, you know what I mean? In terms of like, this is a book not just about cooking, but your life and in a certain
Mhm.
way, like a kind of memoir sort of thing or whatever. And
Yeah.
further, we all know that you don't have to be a good writer in order to quote, write a book. You know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
and Stevie tells him, lead with trauma. Talk to him
yeah.
about that. That's what sells. It's like, what architecture firm is going to care about that when you are applying for an internship?
Yeah, so it's like, look, I'm not an architect, but I can only imagine how someone who is would have felt about this scene because I know enough about the field to think like, what, this is ridiculous. You have no training. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
this is like a 4 year
Right.
college degree in order to go into
Yes.
architecture. There's a lot of math involved. It's
Yeah.
very a lot of it's very boring in a meaningful way. You know what I mean? I mean, maybe it's not boring if you're really into it, but
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
so it's like thematically, I can see where the idea came from about how um, you know, he has this kind of creativity that he also wants to express in something practical
Yeah.
with food, and architecture is sort of like that. But if anything, I would argue architecture is actually like that to the degree that if Carmi actually did commit himself to becoming really good at it, he'd be back in the same place with all the same problems.
Yes, I agree. Perhaps he could get there creatively, he can get there instinctively, he could get there emotionally. But yeah, what his personality sort of drives him to this obsessiveness, and yeah, would have gotten him there. I think it was the
It's
line
bad.
where he said, "I like to draw," and I was like, "What?" That's so does every 8-year-old. That doesn't mean that they can get an internship at an architecture firm.
They make it sound like he's going to be able to just draw nifty buildings and it'll be cool and fun. And it's like, I'm sorry,
Yes,
that's
exactly.
not what that's not what
No,
this actually is. You know what I mean? So that's why I do think that if the idea had been in pitching a book, because again, look, as much as you and I are writers and we might want to get into stuff about the craft and appreciate the skill and expertise of being a good writer and all that, again, we all know you don't have to be a good writer to quote write a book. We know
that's right.
everyone knows at this point, right? Like you put the idea, maybe you have a ghostwriter, or it's a matter of working closely with an editor or whatever. Like all sorts of people are technically writing books. I keep doing scare quotes so people can't see it. But it's like, but yeah, that's my main complaint. Architecture is not like that. Now, my other complaint about the scene, because like I think this is the worst scene in the whole show, um, is that this is where I wanted to shout out Catherine Van in particular. It displays all the faults of the bear when the bear's at its worst, of sort
Mm-hmm.
of like not trusting us to get how things are symbolic and so on and so forth, and saying, no, we need to have this scene where he literally spells it out for you.
Yeah.
And insofar as this was not the climax, but meant to be like the resolution of his character arc,
Mm.
I found it immensely boring because
Yeah.
he was telling me a bunch of stuff I already knew. Um, and if I was there, I think her name's Sue. If I was interviewing you for an architectural internship, I was like, well, that's really interesting. Like, maybe go do something else. Like, I wouldn't hire him.
Sounds like you really found your place at this restaurant. Maybe you should go back there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So like, it makes some sense to me that Carmi like gets to this place where he realized that he can't do it. Although it is odd because there is a meaningful way in which I do think that episode 7 kind of shows that he can do it. I
Yes.
mean,
Yes.
it's a really significant moment, I think, when he drops the lamb. Not so much because of the fact that he made a mistake, but of the way that everyone is there to support him in light of that. And that he's not in charge, but
Hmm.
is now like allowed to be someone who can make a mistake. Because of course we all make
Yeah.
mistakes, but he's always felt like he cannot make any mistakes. And
Yes.
that's part of his whole
Yes.
damage, right?
I think that that's what makes the combination of 7, 8 so striking together is that, yes, he may have realized after all these years, especially with the experience of the Joel McHale character as his head chef, that he gets to this last service and he has learned at least somewhat to defer, learn to let someone take control, learn to let others help him when some mistake is made. Also learned that he can be perhaps the most creative mind in the kitchen when they have to pivot, when they have to come up with something new, when they need to get innovative. He can still pull those tricks out of his bag, and that maybe this is what I should be doing with the right people, but actually now I'm going to go and try to get an internship somewhere else. So just putting the two things together just really was pretty shocking to me.
Yeah, I really didn't think that worked. I feel like either he should have decided to stay at the restaurant um,
Hmm.
as as just a cook in the kitchen,
Yep. Yep.
um, and or I mean, I kind of like the idea. I think it could have largely been the same as what they did, and just have him pitching a book idea instead of this architecture thing, um, and maybe tweak the monologue a little bit. But even if you don't,
Yep.
it would at least make more sense for him to say, I've had all of this experience, and this is what it's been like, and there's trauma, and but here's how like I've learned how to live through this recent experience or whatever, if you're pitching a book idea, because it's like, okay, well,
Yeah.
that kind of sounds like a book I might want to read. Or you could even start
Exactly.
playing with meta ideas like, oh, well, it's actually Carmi's diegetic book that is the basis for the Bear the TV series. Like there's all
Yeah.
sorts of ways in which I think that would have worked. But this architecture stuff, anyway, we've belabored the point. We've driven it into the ground, so we'll move on. Um,
To be fair, I think this is what most people will be talking slash writing about. So I think it's worth giving it its time.
Yeah, I agree. But there's some other stuff to hit on, and most of it I did enjoy. I hit on some things briefly earlier. Let's see. Let me run through the characters, I guess. I said some things about Richie briefly. Is there more to say about Richie? I mean, I do think that, like, man, if you take nothing else from this show positively, buried in these 5 seasons is a really compelling story about Richie. And if you think about Richie, if you were, you could almost tease it out and make a feature length film about Richie as the main character.
Hmm.
I don't know. Further thoughts on Richie?
Yeah, yeah, I do have a lot of thoughts, and I tend to agree with just bringing up that other podcast with Steppenwall and Catherine here. They seem to intimate that in the end, this became a show about Richie. He's the final scene. He's the one that has maybe the most complete and satisfactory arc. We don't know Carmi's outcome, where he is, what he's doing. Is he happy? But we see that with Richie, and in so many ways, I think that from where he was in a sort of over here in a family that accepted him, but always felt like, do I belong? Do I have something? Do I have purpose? He really found it. And I think, yeah, just the strongest story in the entire show.
Yeah. and they close with it, so they know it. But it is structured a little odd because I do think I just have to imagine from the beginning, from the conception of the series, that part of the idea would be that the title plays in that double register. That it's about the bear, the restaurant, but it's about the bear Carmy. And so yeah, it ends up if it ends up feeling like it's more a show about Richie, I don't know. Is that a success? At least
Yeah,
in terms of
yeah.
Richie, I think it all works. I did see someone complaining about it in a way that I'll just mention, but I don't want to belabor this kind of complaint. Like, well, could the restaurant? Okay, I could get that the restaurant would keep operating without Richie, but can they really get by without Richie and without Jess and without
I
Car?
was going to
Like,
bring it this the same point.
and it's like, all right, fair enough, but like, whatever. It's nice that Jess is there. It's great that this relationship seems to be working out. Um, on that front, let's circle back around to at least one more thing about Carmi, which is Claire. And I might
Yeah.
also have a complaint here, I guess. Maybe it's fine, but the thought here I want to be sure to work in is actually more about Claire because let me say this, Ryan, I wrote a piece on
Hmm.
TVObsessive.com about Claire after season two. It was, right? After her character was introduced and all
Yep.
of that. I think that's what it was. Because there were some people out there who were kind of like questioning the character and people who were arguing that she's like a manic pixie dream girl kind of thing or whatever,
Mm.
and I wanted to push back against all that, and that's why I did that article. You can go find it if you want to read it. And now we've hit the end of season five, and I feel like okay, Claire's a manic pixie dream girl in the narrative. But what I want to say is I think that the overall narrative of the bear totally failed her character, if not sort
Mm.
of betrayed it in terms of how she factored into the story because she just kind of disappears. And then, like, I would have preferred if she had not been there at the end,
Yeah.
even because it's like she largely disappeared and then she's just there at the end because she's just kind of like,
I think that's
I don't know.
largely what Carmi's arc deserved because we don't know where he is. We don't know what he's doing. We have very little clues of sort of what happened to him months later. But except for this one piece where it seems like, I guess there's not 100% clear evidence, but it seems like Carmen and Claire are there together, and that
Yeah.
part has been resolved. Is it resolved because he's happy? Is it resolved because he found some satisfaction somewhere? Is it resolved because Claire changed? But just her missing for so long and then being brought back in this, oh, we're gonna, sort of show where everyone is back together in this moment seemed a little shallow in terms of where they could have taken her should he. And again, there may have been scheduling issues, who knows what it is, but if she had been there all along or not been there at all.
Yeah. To be clear, what I actually want the show to have done is more Claire.
Hmm.
But the
Hmm.
fact that she totally fell out of things so thoroughly, and then they just her in that final scene, man, didn't do it
Yep.
for me. I mean, like, okay, I guess it's nice that she's there, but I don't know if you're familiar with the trope, the manic pixie dream girl. I guess maybe I don't feel like she is that still at the end of the day because that's kind of meant as like a figure that's like almost like saving the male protagonist or something like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there's definitely a way in which I do feel like the character of Claire was more complex and ended up getting kind of flattened out to just a side character in Carmi's story. And that's my
Yeah.
criticism at the end of the day. A little disappointed on that front. Um, we do get a Rob Reiner tribute, and I've seen out there
Mhm.
that they're saying this was intentional. You want to talk about this more? He doesn't appear, as I said last time. Albert's sort of in the story anyway, on as the unheard other side of phone calls.
Yeah, it seems like we've had Ibrahim talking to Albert a couple of times in the last two episodes or throughout the season, and just that as they, apparently could not film something with him before his unfortunate passing, just to have, Ibrahim with a very subtle line delivery of "as you wish" from the Princess Bride. I just thought, I mean, I wrote this. I got choked up when
Yeah,
I heard it. Frankly, I was like, oh my gosh, it just hit so many notes about this show, these characters, Rob Reiner, my history with that, being a kid, seeing that movie, just kind of hit all the right notes in just a matter of what, 5 seconds.
yeah, it was good. It was great. And again, I've seen things where it was like basically they've confirmed the, store or whoever confirmed that that was intentional. So we thought of the Princess Bride there. that they were doing that intentionally. Uh, Damn shame that Rob Reiner couldn't be in this season. Presumably
Yeah.
people know why, because he was murdered. Um, and anyway, sorry for being a bummer, but as he is there, and it's nice that they found a way to do that and so on. I think they handled it well. Didn't have a lot of
Yeah.
options given how he is in the story. Um, let's see. Other things you want to hit on before I'll take the last thing that you have here, we'll talk about it in terms of ranking the seasons. You got me
Yeah.
thinking about that, so I'm prepared to talk about that. Anything else you want to hit on first? Have we covered all the
Let
characters
me
sufficiently?
let me ask you a Sid question, and I brought this up in my
Yeah,
piece as well. Which go ahead and read this. I'm curious your thoughts on it. So they get 2 stars, which is you know
yeah.
more than they ever hoped for, right? They thought they were going to get them based on this Starman who was there at the service in episode 7. That clearly was not the case. That was just some random guy there with a real life Chicago weatherman Tom Skilling, who apparently everyone adores in Chicago. You can go read a lot about him. But this is not the service that earned them the stars. It was the service from season 3, where there was sort of an anonymous man there who has great food, witnesses, Richie and the team putting together a winter, sort of snow winter wonderland for this family and getting them dessert outside. I was very impressed by all of that, but that means it's not Sid's dish, it's not Sid's leadership, it's not Sid that got them the Michelin star. It's Carmi's running of the kitchen. It's Carmi's chaos menu. It's what, sort of a thing that Sid always butted heads with Carmi against. So, thoughts on does this demotivate Sid? Is this, something that sort of puts a roadblock in front of her? How does she feel about these, stars, knowing that it wasn't really her that got them?
I mean, I think that's another thing that's a little bit bumpy, and yeah, maybe we're thinking through a bit. In terms of the question you asked, one, I'm glad you asked it because we should talk about Sid more because look, we were just kind of making the argument maybe this was Richie's show. You could make the argument maybe it's maybe Sid's the main character
Yep.
for long stretches anyway, or maybe even overall. But I don't think that at a character level she's going to quite feel that way. You
Yep.
know, um, the accomplishment of the service in episode 7 still exists, and that just happened.
Hmm.
And they pulled it together, and she was in charge, and they ended up going with her coke ribs, and they were a hit. And
Yep.
like okay, maybe that guy wasn't the Michelin star guy, but he loved the coke ribs. Other people loved them, and so on
Yep.
and so forth, and everything else. You know what I mean? So then learning that the restaurant has gotten the stars, all right, yeah, if you think back and say, oh, well, that was when Carmi was in charge and it was Carmi's menu, yeah, maybe that would undermine a little, but would you really let it if you were Sid in her position? I mean, she was still working there. She was still a part of everything. She was still,
Yeah.
supposed to be Carmi's partner at that
Yeah.
point, so I would
I
expect
think
take it as more a collective achievement, you know,
great.
that
Okay,
she was
this
a
is
part of.
exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, since I wrote that and we published it, I have thought a lot about it and have landed on the same place that whether it was the service where the Michelin Raider was there or the service in episode 7, they always, Sid, Carmi, and everyone did it as a team. They all earned it as a team. And so there wasn't anyone who had a less important or more important role in that. They all earned it. And so, yeah, I think Sid likely lands there, and knows that now her role, as what little I know about this, she now knows her role is to maintain that. And how hard it is to do that. So now she has a real job in front of her, but she knows she can do it because she has the right people with her.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could theoretically aim for a third one, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I tried to look into this a little bit along the lines of like, is it possible to get 2 stars at once? And like, I guess it is, and I
Yeah.
don't worry about it too much. But yeah, I mean, I think overall, and the fact that this means, um, I presume that the restaurant can keep going. We're not going to close down and all of that, and then you know, um, yeah, I think Sid's arc overall concludes pretty well, because she came into this as a fan of Carmi, really,
Right.
wanting to work with him and so on. If you think about their dynamic, in terms of where we land with her character. Maybe one of the bigger moments was in the earlier episode, maybe it was episode six even, in that, because I think we talked about it last week when Carmi says, like the difference is I would have screamed at everyone else, and you came out of the alley to scream.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that Sid at this point has gotten the kind of confidence that she needs to be the head chef of the Bear, and that's where she
Yes.
lands. And I
Yep.
think all that works pretty well.
I think that's right.
All right, so you wanted to do this, or rank the seasons. You want to go first? You want me to go first? Or you want to put it on our show sheet?
I'll go first. I think that for me, the one I would rank one, the first and last are the easiest ones. For me, that would be I'm going to start with season two, and then at the end, I'm going to have season four, and then between that, it's going to be, I think, two, one. I think it's going to be two, one, five, three, four.
Oh wow. Okay, interesting. Interesting. Now I haven't rewatched all of this recently. Maybe you
Yeah,
have more
nor have
than
I.
but I'm working more from memory, and then there are certain ways in which the season three and four run together a little bit. Seasons four and five run together a little bit, except I just watched season five.
Yeah.
But um, yeah, I was thinking about this after you put it on our sheet before we started recording, and I think I'm going to go two. So I'm going to agree.
Okay.
Season two is was what I'm saying is the best season.
Okay.
And then I believe you had season one as the second best season,
Yes.
and we're still in agreement.
Okay.
But then I think I'm going to go three, four, five.
Oh, interesting. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So you this fifth season you rank it last, huh?
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, maybe if I rewatch the whole thing, I'll change my mind on that. But it just relates to some of the things I was getting at last time we recorded it. I was going to say last week. I guess it was technically last week, but it was like 3 days ago. Um, about the first six episodes of season five. You know, some of the stuff I said there about the structure of it, my complaints about the little breaks and the first three episodes and the music. And I mean, overall, I guess just like you feel like episode five, I'm sorry, season five, it was almost like one long episode and then an epilogue. If you want to put, again, I
Yeah.
push back a little bit about the idea that
Yep.
episode eight is an epilogue, but one through seven, it's just like they all run together. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is something I've thought about a lot, and I don't know if I'll ever get around to actually writing this article. It's been percolating in my mind for like 3 or 4 years at least. But the difference between kinds of shows along these lines, like how much is the episode an episode as opposed to a portion of content.
Yeah.
And so that would be the biggest reason I'm putting season five last is I feel like these episodes weren't episodes for the most part. Whereas, and look, I put Gary before season five too. We left that out. And so with season four, I guess I'd have to double check, but I think we still had some. Speaking of Catherine Van Honor and Dunk, she's the one who coined departure episode to refer to this. Um, I think we still had some of those, didn't we, in
We
season
did.
four?
We had the
So
wedding. Yep.
yeah, and so even if I can see the complaint in season four a bit about you know the show smelling its own farts or whatever a little bit. Um, if season five was an attempt to correct that, I feel like it's an overcorrection because when I look back, my most favorite episodes of The Bear are, ice chips, napkins,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
forks, fishes.
Yep.
Were all those season two? Yeah, anyway, but like things along those lines when they did kind of like dial in. So even like I don't remember the name of what was the one that focused on Sid. I think that was more recently. That might
Yes.
have been in season four. Um,
Actually, that was last season with her niece. Yeah.
yeah. So the fact that season five was just kind of like a stream of content culminating in one service,
Yeah.
and there was just too much facts. So
Hmm.
it ends up being. being the lowest ranked in my mind.
Interesting. Yeah, no. Hey, that's why we do this. So we can yeah.
And
I don't know, I just like that there was five went somewhere. I felt that four
yeah,
did a lot of tread the water, and to your point, they sort of pat themselves on the back a lot and just thought that yeah, five may be the best piece of evidence for releasing this show as a binge. You know, we've always complained that they did this, but five was probably best served that way. Would have been weird
yeah.
to do it otherwise. So, you know, whether you like that or don't like that may factor into your opinion. But yeah, just interesting people's impressions about these. I think universally one and two are considered to be sort of god tier, and then it's sort of what do you feel about the rest?
Yeah, but it's sort of precisely to my point in a certain way. I could spin it this way, and it's like, yeah, okay, five's well suited to a binge, whereas we've been complaining about previous seasons that they aren't. So if
Yeah,
five is, it's because it's not the same show anymore.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
structurally, it doesn't feel the same, and I prefer
yeah.
what it was before. And I don't know, look, I'm not saying season five is bad. I want to make that clear to everyone. Just because I ranked it
Right.
at the lowest, I would also rank season five of The Wire as the worst season of The Wire. And it was one of the greatest shows ever in my mind, notwithstanding that. Maybe it would have been better if it after season four, but regardless, season five of The Wire is fine, you know? So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
Regardless,
sad it's over. No more bear.
yeah, man. Yeah. I'm really curious to see, though, what Christopher Storer gets into next, because at least I think this was kind of
Yeah,
the first thing or like the breakout thing. And so what
I
kind of
think so.
arc might he be
Yeah.
on as a creative behind the scenes? I'll be curious to see where that goes. All right, thanks as always for listening to the podcast. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. If so, please do leave a good rating, review, all that good stuff. If you're on YouTube, hit that thumbs up. Please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. Greatly appreciate it. Be sure to check out tvobsessive.com, where you can find written work on all sorts of TV shows. Ryan's written on The Bear, and there's stuff on the previous seasons and all of that, and other shows. So check it out, poke around a bit. If you want to follow us on social media, search for TV Obsessive and you should find us. And as for the podcast, we're going to be back on Friday to talk about the first episode of Silo Season 3. That's July 3rd. To let you know, it will be maybe kind of abbreviated, or we're going to just primarily focusing on the first episode of Silo, which comes out on Friday. But keep an eye out for that, and we'll continue on with Silo week to week after that. And yeah, we'll see you then.
See you next time.